You want to be a
Baller. Shot caller, 20-inch blades on the Impala. Caller getting laid tonight. Switch and roll tight, gotta spread the eye. Now hit the highway.
mm-hmm,
Making money the flyway.
mm-hmm.
But it's got to be a better way. Better way, yeah. I'm a baller. I'm a 20-inch caller. Blaze on the roller. Diamond rock waller. I-10 hauler. Never need a 9 Paula. Break these boys off. I'm a 20-inch caller. Bust a left or right. I'm out of sight. I'm throwed. I'm bouncing off the road. I'm changing tools. Hop out my big body form.
That's what you call. I got mind control over Debo.
Inception. All right, y'all. Welcome to
No, that's how we
another.
starting, huh?
Yeah.
That was lit. Let's get
That
it.
was it. Welcome to another episode of Remembering Me, an intentional healing podcast. My name is Candice Love.
My name is Docs, aka Brick City Buddha.
Yeah, and this is episode 3
Mm-hmm.
of our
The
podcast.
three-way, the threesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that is a good segue
Mm-hmm.
into what we're speaking about today. Is there anything that we need to speak on, touch on before we get to the topic at hand?
Nah, I think we could dive right in today. I don't
Okay.
think we need a introductory segment.
Okay, cool. So,
Why I gotta do
because, I opened the last
it?
conversation in
You
episode
did?
2. I did.
This year?
I did.
Okay. All right, well, this particular conversation, I think we touched on it briefly in the intro to our previous episode. Thank you guys for watching that episode, first 2 episodes. Continue to support. We're going to continue to give you the life, not the content. We don't consider this
Absolutely.
content. But we have had a lot of conversation spark, a lot of questions about how we approach sexuality due to the latest version of our intimate moment kind of going viral. The first of which, and we was kind of just talking about it earlier in a previous podcast. The first time that happened for us was what will become, unbeknownst to you, our marriage ceremony week
Yeah.
rather.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good place to start as far as our approach to sexuality.
Right.
Um, St. John's. Let me paint the picture.
Yeah,
St.
paint the
John's,
picture.
right? This is the first time any woman had ever done anything to this degree for me. Like I was low key and high key uncomfortable when you was like, I want to do something for your birthday, and I want to
What
run
voice is
something by
that?
you.
What voice is that?
Yes, it is. That's her voice. But yeah, when she first told me that she wanted to take me on a trip, she wanted to fly me out, y'all. It's the first
You
time
got flued
I got
out.
flued out. And when she first told me she wanted to go to St. John's for my birthday, like I had to just wrap my mind, more so my heart, around being able to accept that level of love. I've gotten gifts before, but nothing to that degree. And I was already like, still am, of course, completely in love. So I ain't need all that. But when she said it, and my heart was like, nigga, you better get your heart and mind wrapped around this. We about to go to St.
Straight
John.
up.
Um, from that point, she also had a few other tricks up her sleeve. So she already had that plan like 3, 4 months in advance. I knew we was doing that. I have never been surprised for my birthday before. Never had a surprise party. Always low key wanted one. But she pops up coming from 1,400 miles away. She pops up in New Jersey, and mind you, she kind of knows my community. And at that point, she really didn't. She's doing recognizance on my
Yeah.
Instagram page,
Right.
trying to see who's commenting on what, who I seem to
Right.
be affiliated with, and just sending people messages like, "Look, I think you one of Doc's friends. I'm doing a surprise party. Can y'all come?" So the day of, I just wanted to chill, knowing I wasn't going to be with her. I take my holidays when I'm by myself as opportunities to spark romance with my creator. And we'll get to that in our approach to sexuality. But I planned on just being by myself that day, dressing nice, but being by myself. Except for shout out to Shino, the owner of Blueberry Cafe. She was in cahoots. And she was like, Docs, I want to take you to lunch for your birthday. I'm like, all right, cool. And mind you, she's popping up from 1,400 miles away. A lot of women probably don't feel comfortable popping up and they live down the block because they don't
Yeah.
know what they may actually run into. But this is the level of trust that we have in our relationship. So she literally flies out, gets everything done. I'm thinking I'm just going to lunch with Shino, and she's starting to say all this extra stuff, and something's starting to, the wheel's starting to turn. Like, hold up, what's going on here? And right when I started to figure things out, I opened the door and it's a whole surprise party that day. And then she also had a ceremony to initiate me into what we call my babahood. And it's interesting because one of the first gurus I sat under, his name is Baba. A lot of gurus end up taking that name. It's, aspects of fatherhood, spiritual father. And I have kind of been that in my community for a while.
Very much so. Not even kind of.
Right. But she did a ceremony that also went viral, that initiated me into that, got the flowers out, had the community crowd around me, washed my feet. Some of y'all may have seen that one too. And all this leading up to us going to St. John's.
Yeah.
So before I turn it over to you, I kind of knew you was, if I was ever going to have a one, I knew you was that from a very early stage, even before we started to get romantic. But by this point, it's just like, bruh, like, it's too much at this point to not like really, I guess, take a leap of faith, even though it wasn't that. I knew what it was. But after that ceremony, I knew this about to be my wife.
Yeah.
And we had all these conversations. We don't want no relationships. We don't want no titles. We ain't getting married. I don't care about none of that. And there was a part of me that is like, all right, am I overstepping my bounds? But it was a way bigger part that said, no, she don't even realize that she wants and actually needs this experience beyond you wanting to make her your wife. So on our way to before I got to St. John's, I went and got the rings, got things set up. I didn't know how it was going to flex once we got there. I kind of let her pick up from that point, but we wanted to lay the groundwork first before we get to y'all understanding of how we approach sexuality.
Yeah. And all of that was just a beautiful time in our relationship. And, we acknowledged that we were together, but for the most part, that was enough for us.
Yeah.
It wasn't like so what are we? Or
Right.
are you going to move to Houston?
She
And
never asked that.
it wasn't like I need, what are your intentions? Those conversations never happened. It wasn't necessary for those conversations to happen. But I knew that whatever was to happen for us in our future, you were it for me. And so me wanting to, shower you and acknowledge you and really give you your flowers in a way that I felt you deserved, and in a way that I felt like people previous to me being a part of your life dropped the ball. And so a part of me hosting the surprise birthday party and having the ceremony to wash your feet in front of your community and also having them be involved was also to lead by example and remind them, when you have someone who is pouring into you the way that you pour into everybody that you meet, it is unacceptable for you not to acknowledge this man in the way that he deserves and is supposed to be acknowledged, period. So it was like, here, acknowledge the person that has been guiding you in this process. And so it was to honor you, but to show other people this is how you honor a man of this magnitude.
Right. And then to go from that point to St. John's. And we was there for what, 5 days? Maybe. No, we was there for a minute.
Yeah.
Like 6, 7 days.
Yeah.
In the middle of the jungle, like literally. If you ever been to St. John's, driving around, they don't got streets, they got mountains, they got hills. And we in this Jeep Cherokee, just the place that we stayed at literally is on like this crazy half side of a mountain. It was nuts.
Yeah.
But I knew what I was gonna do. I knew what it was time for. I didn't know how it was gonna happen. So all she kept talking about, out of all the things that we could do at St. John's, she just wanted to go hear some music.
Yeah.
Some our type of music, because it's a lot of not us out there in St. John's, so you may not think that you could find something like that. She's calling every single day. I still don't know what day I'm gonna do this, what time, what it's gonna look like. I just know God gonna guide me. It's lit. I'm about to have a wife out here in these streets. So I think it was the 4th or 5th day, close to our last day, and I'm like, yo, get dressed. Still didn't know what we doing.
Right.
right?
No.
She happened to make a call that day. Somebody said there may be something going down in the village. I'm like, yo, let's just get dressed and go figure it out.
Right.
So I put on my little threads.
Yeah,
I
you
got my
tell me
little
what color to wear.
nah, and we still ended up in alignment even as far as our
Yeah.
colors. So I got the John on me, right? She still don't know nothing. And that day, this is kind of what consecrated it because she wanted to shoot some footage for me as a meditation teacher in that environment. We got beautiful Airbnb. The bathroom is like halfway outside, halfway not. So I'm sitting there doing some meditative techniques to get footage. At a certain point, it just was this warm, comfortable Carl Thomas summer rain, right?
Summer
Right.
rain.
So the camera already set up. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, come here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, I'm laid out chest naked and on my island boyness, right? So she come over to me
Get
and
it, baby.
she just gets on top of me, and 10 maybe 12 minutes
Yeah.
of us getting to a point where we forgot the camera was even rolling. We was just within ourselves again, breathing each other's breath, letting our souls intertwine, and that was that morning. That's kind of what let me know it's supposed to be today. So as
Yeah.
soon as we get to the village, all of a sudden we stumble across this little place where is one black woman, one black man. He's playing an instrument, she's singing Mario, singing
Yeah.
all, you know what I mean, like all the R&B joints she would have wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And it's nobody there. It's literally one
Yeah.
other person in the place. So we vibing, and it's
And that lady from the place is she knew us from social media, and she also was recommending spaces for us to.
right because I knew I wanted to do this on a beach at night. So the only person in the audience besides us is the person I needed to ask. First of all, we gonna get arrested if we go on the beach at night, and if
Right.
not, which one should we go to?
Right.
The one she suggests, Honeymoon Beach. Right? So we have a beautiful time. We leave the spot. It starts raining again.
Yeah.
The infamous date night in the rain. So we out on this island getting rained on. I already know what I got in my plans in my pocket. And it's like, all right, let's go find a beach. So we go to Honeymoon Beach. And literally when we get on it, it's not like a big shore or whatever you call it. It's not a lot of sand. It's mostly
Yeah.
just ocean.
Yeah.
But it's midnight. Ain't no lights, ain't no street lights out here. You really can't see anything.
Right.
All you can smell and feel and hear and sense is just these beautiful waves under all these stars, and there's nobody around. We felt like we was the only people in the universe at that
Yeah.
point.
The only thing that you could see was the moon.
Exactly. We couldn't even see each other.
Yeah.
So at a certain point,
Couldn't even see each other.
right. At a certain point, I'm still like, all right, so how am I going to spark it though? I know it's about to happen right now. So we just vibing, we just talking, and I remember hearing in my mind first before I actually said it, if you could have this moment, oh no, if you could have any wish granted, what would it be? And I asked her that, and she was like, to have this moment forever. Got down in front of her, both knees, and after all the conversations, after all the walls that may have been around her, your heart, even previous to me, all that came crashing down. And I just felt the hand shaking. I felt the crying. Again, I can't see her. We soul to soul. I could literally feel like ancestors and angels lined up as our
Absolutely.
witnesses. And, this is very rare. I don't know anybody else who's had a wedding where there's nobody there. Even when you go to court, there's still a witness.
Right.
It was literally just souls that was witnessing this. So from that point, and I'm not going to go into the rest of the story, that's just setting the groundwork for how we have been very intuitively guided into deeper and deeper intimacy with each other, that even down to you saying over and over, I never want to be married, to that moment letting you know that you needed and wanted that, and that could only be with your boy.
Absolutely. Because, when we first, I tell this story all the time, when we first got together, or not even got together, but when we first met and we first started talking, I don't even know why or how this conversation happened, but we made it very clear, I don't care to be in a relationship. I don't care to ever be married, or it didn't even matter to us at that time if we were sexually active. We were just so enthralled in our personal evolution. And so I had been single for 4 years prior to meeting my husband, and I was very much so okay with being by myself. And then I was very much so okay with being in a relationship that didn't have any titles
Right.
because there was no expectations and it felt like freedom. And then I was very much so okay with not asking a whole lot of questions that were unnecessary to try to figure out. And so in my mind, it was like, okay, well, I didn't want a relationship, but I'm here. And then when you proposed, the excitement that came over me was like, who is this? Like, you crying.
Right.
And I used to always watch videos of women cry when they got married, and it just did nothing for me. I
Right.
never thought that that would be me. But our connection and you knowing that my spirit wanted that and needed that, even though I had convinced myself that I didn't, it just felt like being chosen to the ultimate degree, which is a wound that I have worked through for a very long time and still work through at times, not feeling chosen. And that moment was like just feeling chosen by the person that you love and would love to spend your life with. I was literally on top of the moon that was right there in our ceremony. And when you say that, ancestors were there with us, it felt like ancestors, angels, any beautiful entity that was there to congratulate us was all there watching. And so that was, I got home, we played our song. When I was little, I used to always say, when I get married, I'm gonna play what's his name?
With the bald head, the light skinned
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, what's his name? Kenny
Yeah, Kenny
Lattimore.
Lattimore.
I'm gonna play Kenny Lattimore. So he played Kenny Lattimore the whole way driving back to our villa. And then we also played it again in our villa and
Like
like
I'm there
slow
right now
danced.
as you saying it.
Yeah, we slow danced and did a lot of other things afterwards too.
And mind you, like, you know, she got little hands and I ain't know what size ring they got. I got the smallest one I could get. Ring still baggy. She don't care. She just all out here in the middle of the island. We get back. We big battle rap fans. It was a huge event. I mean, we had got some island pizza. We lit.
Yeah.
I got the battles going after, you know, we kind of just settled down. She just prancing all of just she ain't caring about no type battle.
I was dancing around that whole place. I didn't hear nothing
Right.
else going on.
Right. But some of the small moments in intimacy, like we talked in our last podcast about, oh no, last night on the IG Live about the ethos.
Yeah.
And I'll bring that up again in this one for those that didn't see that. Our first date and our first time being intimate was in a space that we call the ethos. There are 5 elements according to certain spiritual sciences. Of course, we all know the 4 fire, water, earth, and air. The 5th element is called ether. Like Plato and Socrates, that's what they pretty much call the divine force that's flowing through everything. So being that we 1,400 miles away, when we started to cultivate this relationship, before we even knew that's what it was, I was just compelled. And this was sparked, like I go back a little bit further, when I really got into quantum entanglement. And that was one of
Yes.
the first articles I sent her that made us vibe.
Yeah, because
Um,
when I saw that he was into quantum entanglement, I'm like, oh, I love the idea of quantum anything quantum, that type of realm of existence. I've studied that so deeply. So to know that he also studied was like, oh man, somebody who can have the same conversation with me as I have with myself.
right. So with that being said, quantum entanglement is pretty much the observation of, you know, quantum mechanics scientists and stuff like that have witnessed and observed celestial bodies on opposite ends of the universe, not just galaxy, opposite ends of the universe that are in unison, undeniably connected, move and shift in the same ways. And there's a complete science on this. I think Einstein called it spooky movement at a distance or something like that. So y'all could look up the mechanics of quantum entanglement. But I say that to say, way before she came around, when I really started to throw myself into these tools and techniques, I came upon a technique that was given to me by my spirit called energetic hugs. And at that point, I'm not teaching meditation for a living. I'm still broke, disability, all that stuff. And on Facebook, I just start saying, if anybody need a hug, anywhere in the country right now, do this experiment with me. And one by one, of course, mostly women, one by one, they started to be like, all right, let's try it. And they would feel it. And I was doing this, free of charge for like a year. So I already knew that this was not just something you read in a book or in an article. So I remember I was compelled to say, you know what? Let's go into the ethos. And we gave ourselves like 5-7 minutes or something like that. And we both had pretty much the same experience, ended up on Saturn, of all the places in the universe for your imagination and your consciousness to take you to. 1,400 miles away, we end up at the same space. And in that moment, it was our first time having sex. Of course, it wasn't physical, but when you understand how real energy is, spirit is, that experience felt just as real as any time we've engaged in the actual flesh. So moments like that, dancing to Kenny Lattimore before we even went to St. John's, we would have moments we had to be creative as far as our time together. So if I'm going into the forest in Jersey, she in Houston, you coming with me. I'm a film and I'm a document and talk to you. Let's have a dance night. What song? Go back and forth, trading songs. So already having danced to Kenny Lattimore before I even knew she was going to be my wife.
Yeah.
To then having that moment, we really bypass how much power is available to us beyond the flesh, beyond the physical. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today.
Yeah. So I guess we can go ahead and get into the actual topic. I cried after we had sex.
Oh, I almost forgot we was about to go there.
Huh?
So you have the floor. Let's talk about it.
So, I guess before we speak about anything, for the most part, we have to give a backstory. My history with sex in general has been very performative. All of my past relationships, which I haven't had many, maybe 3, but I've had more sexual partners, maybe a few more sexual partners, to where I would
As our cat is eating himself out right now, but go ahead.
tell me. And so with those sexual partners, I just never felt I never felt safe enough to not perform. My performance was an act to receive love in return. It felt like what I was supposed to do. So I only remember performing during sex. I've never, before my husband, had a sexual experience to where I was fully free. I was fully safe. I was fully liberated. I never had a sexual experience to where I was taken care of, to where they wanted to honor my body and actually warm my body up before we got to a sexual experience. I never had someone like kiss me, kiss my neck, and, just like touch on me and things like that before a sexual experience. So I just knew how to give and do and perform and make the sounds and moans, and in hopes that that person would not choose another person over me. So it was very performative. And so as I met my husband, he had a lot of encouragement for me to just explore myself in general. Before I met my husband, I was like 60 pounds overweight and still on my journey. I've been on my journey for over 10 years. But at that time I had a mirror that didn't go past my shoulders. So I hadn't seen myself, and I've been also single and not sexually active for that past 4 years. And so I hadn't seen my body from my shoulders down in 4 years since I gained 60 pounds. And so when I met my husband, our healing accelerated on a different level. The time just sped up. And I started to form a really deep relationship with myself. And he gave me an idea. He was like, you should go buy a mirror, a full length mirror. And I did. And then I was like, oh, look, you look kind of good, And once I started to really fall in love with myself, the emotional weight that I was carrying started to fall off without going to the gym. And I started to, you started to say, as far as like lingerie and stuff, color. And
All she wore was black.
yeah, all I wore was black. And I just felt like black made me invisible. It made the fat invisible. And it just felt like the only thing that didn't highlight the areas of myself that I wasn't comfortable with. And so he was like, maybe you should get something pink or something white. I'm like, pink and white?
Right.
And then I was like, well, maybe I should get something pink and white. And so I started getting lingerie that was colorful and bright and vibrant. And then it was like, well, let me put some oil on and send him a couple pictures. And I started feeling even more comfortable to show myself and show my body and have that freedom and just exploring myself. And then once our relationship started to progress in our sexual experience, I realized that there was no desire or even program for me to show up and perform during our sexual experiences.
Absolutely. And even in that process, I remember sometimes, excuse me, you would call me, or just text me, or send the videos on Instagram. But it got to the point where it went beyond accommodating what I was asking for. It got to the point where you was starting to be able to be playful, where exploring all these different versions of the new version of yourself. And this is before the shifts in your body and all these different things. This was just the psychological, emotional, energetic playfulness. Your inner child, even though we talking about sex, and a lot of people think these are two different things. For the best sex, your inner child has to be involved.
Absolutely.
So as you putting on different colors, it's like you playing house, playing Barbie with yourself. This beautiful black Barbie is now being able to crack herself open and realize the potential of what's already here. And even though there were things that you felt like needed changes, you were able to see and be comfortable with where you were at that time. Because for a long time you wanted the breast reduction that you eventually ended up getting. But when I first met you, when we would talk about it, I think desperation is too strong of a word, but you was gung ho like, nah, I want this.
Yeah, yeah.
It never stopped being something that you wanted. But I remember the day where you was like, you know what? If I gotta wait another 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it is what it is. I'm comfortable with myself right now. So watching you start to go through that evolution beyond what was, of course, working for me, to see you start to blossom within and for yourself, to yourself, that was a beautiful process to watch. And all of these types of moments where you always say, this is provision.
Absolutely.
A lot of women in society and a lot of men have accepted this program. The only ways we can provide is to physically protect, of course, provide financially, and be good in the bedroom. There are all these pockets when somebody is under that conditioning that a man can overlook and bypass, where it takes being in touch with your feminine side, in touch with energy and emotion, to understand the things your lady may need, which eventually trickles into moments like crying during and after sex. We don't have that if she don't feel safe with me on multiple levels, and we don't have that
Absolutely.
safety without these small moments where my spirit is like, go get a mirror, or her spirit
Yep.
is telling me celebrate your wins, or whatever it is. It just opens up more and more safety, more freedom. And when you got that, anything goes when it comes time to get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in those moments where I'm exploring having, different colors in lingerie, then it started to trickle down into, like I said, me losing weight. And then it's like, well, I can actually fit certain types of clothes now. And then the clothing that I wore was more playful. And so it felt like I was in an adventure with myself, and having the safe space of my husband being like, nah, do you like wear the colors and, do this. And everything that I put on, he was admiring and in admiration of, which just gave me even more to like, I think I want to explore this, or I think I want to wear my hair like this. And so having that type of freedom and liberation coming from a very closed off shell. And, I have a background of military, 10 years, 7 years as a police officer. So since I've been 18 years old, I've been in a masculine uniform, and I haven't had the ability to tap into my femininity at all, even though I'm very soft in many ways. But in those ways, even when it comes down to me getting my nails done now, doing my toes now, I'm still working on exploring the adventure of being feminine in those aspects. And I had none of that. So that's why it was easy for me to just wear black. And now when you're wearing color, you start to feel more womanly. You start to feel a lot more feminine and soft. And then you can welcome in love a lot differently. You can allow yourself to receive love a lot easier. And so my husband was holding such beautiful space for me to explore these uncharted territories. And he was really inspiring me to continue to go into these spaces and explore my body. And so now when we, start to have our sexual experiences, I realize like even more and more every time that we would have sex, I would let go even more. And it's very noticeable when you're having a sexual experience when you're in your head. And I recognize that more and more each time. I was less in my head and more in our experience and our sexual experience, our spiritual experience. And I had never orgasmed
Right.
before until the night that we had our ceremony on Honeymoon Beach.
Right.
That was my first time ever experiencing an orgasm, and it felt as if that my soul needed to be nurtured in that way for me to feel safe enough and free enough to even give myself permission to allow myself to have an orgasm with someone. It had to be him. No one else was allowed to access that energy. No one else was allowed to nurture that type of energy. Nobody had the capacity to nurture that type of energy within me. And so now in our sexual experiences, I'm fully liberated and still finding more ways to be liberated. I recognize that in those moments where I was in other relationships, like being on top and I had never had sex sober. I'm 5 years sober in March. Thank you, baby. But before my husband, I had never had sex sober. I was always drunk. Every single person. I was always intoxicated. And I needed to drink to actually get me through the act.
Perform, yeah.
Yeah, to perform. It was never me in those moments. It was the person I had to become to get through those moments. And so now with my husband, I'm fully present in every single space. And even like with something, it's like with the artist. Have you ever seen when an artist has all of this confidence when they're on stage, and then the second they get off stage, they get shy, and it's like, oh yeah, they shrink. And so in those relationships, when I was performing, it was like it looked as if I had so much confidence. Right. And now that I'm not performing, I see how there's a lot of vulnerability in me showing up and being able to initiate. There's a lot of vulnerability in me showing up and being able to be on top, which I'm still, learning how to do. But this past experience that we had after we had our sexual, the ending, I cried, and it felt like bliss. That was the only way that I could explain what I felt. It just felt blissful. And I've always seen, women on movies cry after they had sex. And I'm like, what? Like I could never.
You literally said, because we wasn't done, we was getting towards that point, but you was like, why am I crying?
Yeah.
You literally asked, like, why am I crying? And it just kind of opened up the floodgates.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, even in the first time you did climax, and I've said this for a while now, that no man can make a woman climax.
Absolutely.
At least not just with, our man. It's not about that. They have to go to an extremely deep level of safety and freedom to get to that point. And, we always talk about the fact that whenever you do climax as a man or a woman, where is that sensation felt? It's felt inside of you. So you may feel like I got assistance or this person is doing it for me or doing it to me, but that's still something from within you that you put yourself in a proper position, no pun intended, proper position and place and energy to open up what's already in you. So I can't even take credit. Oh yeah, I'm the one that cracked the code. It wasn't about that. It was about those moments. Dancing to Kenny Lattimore, go get the mirror. The moments where very early on I was going to see a female friend of mine, never anything extracurricular with her, but I just felt compelled to let her know 1,400 miles away, 2 months into a non-relationship, I'm about to go check my homegirl to talk about some business stuff and catch up. You okay with that? Does that make you feel uncomfortable? These are the moments that was present on a conscious and subconscious and unconscious level in a moment where she was able to open up. And I'm still having flashbacks. That's why I had to kind of like put my head down when you was talking about it. But the scenery, the Saint, like it was just so crazy. And I remember even in that moment, like the I won't say the first stage of you opening up, but one of the big stages of you opening up. You know, I'm vocal. If you know, I'm like that.
Yeah.
There was a time where I was just running through women and I would be silent. I ain't saying nothing. I'm just trying to get mine.
Yeah.
So when I'm there with you, I'm gonna be vocal. And I remember you starting to open up your vocality in
Yeah.
that moment, and we just, we talk and I talk to each
Right.
other.
And we outside
Facts
in
outside
the mountains.
in the mountains, in the jungle, beautiful Airbnb. Nobody could see us. Night, summer, St. John's air,
Yeah.
and we was able to like, just really let loose. So to see you open up to that degree from that point, and before we even got there, the times and the ethos, the dates we would go on. Of course, the only way we could engage in more physical sex was via, the phone and sending pictures and still using our imagination. But to get from all of that to where we were that night, the night, we made this official under God, to then going all the way to the crying. And something happened after the crying too.
Yeah.
Last week. And you said you wanted to talk about it too. Wasn't crying. Um,
What was it? Because we always have so many like beautiful experiences that kind of like blend into
right.
one another. I know
Right.
you gonna remember.
Yeah, it'll come back to me.
Yeah, so
To
I'll continue
me.
my thought because I want to know
Yeah,
what it
yeah, no
is.
doubt.
And after crying in that moment, you recognize that all of the provision has finally come to fruition.
Right.
All of the safety has finally come to fruition, but also all of the work that I've done within myself. It is a indication of how safe I feel in my body. And that is a indication of the safety that I've also provided for myself to be able to let go and enjoy pleasure, which also sent me down a rabbit hole of, after experiencing that, of the idea of pleasure and the ways that I experience pleasure on a daily basis, and the ways that I block my opportunities from being able to experience pleasure. And so one of the things when it comes to pleasure, we think about sex and sex only. But my idea of pleasure and pleasure leading into blissful moments is if if uncomfortable emotions arise, having harmony to be able to just ride through those waves
Right.
with ease. That seems like pleasure to me, but it requires me to do the emotional healing work from the past.
Right.
So when these present moments come up, I can easily guide my way through them. Pleasure also looks like now, really being mindful of the food that I'm intaking. So every
Been
day
doing a great
that,
job.
thank you, baby. Every day that comes by, I'm able to really enjoy my day without being fatigued, without having emotions that are unregulated because the food is still processing in my digestive system, not having issues with my digestive system, not having issues with my skin, doing things that are now clearing my pathway to provide pleasure for me at all given times. And that also require me to acknowledge what are the things that I'm doing that are hindering my ability to receive pleasure and to experience bliss day by day.
Right.
Food is something that was hindering my ability and blocking my pathway to experience pleasure.
Right.
Maybe not being consistent with my spiritual practices. And so that moment with us sharing that pleasurable and that blissful moment was like, how can I continue to experience this on a daily basis?
And there has been a shift. Now, that
Yes.
dot is just connecting as you say that.
Yeah, even from that, I created an altar in our home to where we
Wow.
have a beautiful space we can go sit at and honor God and feel God's presence. And my husband even said it feels like his throne in our home. And so many aspects of, what has felt like this will continue to provide us pleasure day by day. As long as I get these things out of the way, I stay balanced with my food. I stay balanced with my physical or my spiritual practices. When anything comes about, I can experience bliss on a daily basis. It doesn't have to just be in sexual acts with my husband when I'm able to orgasm.
Right. And even you going back and forth in your mind maybe 2, 3 days ago, you was already maybe 3, 4 days into your shift, into your balance relationship with eating right now. And you was like, you know what? I think I want some ramen today.
Yeah.
And of course, ramen is not healthy, like especially the one we get. It's this vegan spot. Shout out to
Yeah.
Rakan Ramen. If
Straight
y'all in
up.
Houston, go over there. We ain't even gonna trip about y'all sending us a check.
What it
Free
do?
meal. You know what
What it do?
I mean? Facts. But even that wasn't anything that was unhealthy. But she was just going back and forth within herself. Is this too heavy for me to intake right now?
Yeah.
And I sat there, I talked with her through it, and it got to the point where my guidance was just about reflecting what she may not have realized her spirit was already saying, because she's going through all these scenarios of, I don't want to feel heavy the next couple of days. I feel so beautiful. And light. I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do then.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. And then out of that came the fear of the old program, which
Yes.
was, you would talk about the addictive behavior you used to
Absolutely.
function in, because that's
Right.
not the case no more.
Right.
But within that paradigm, it was all or nothing. If I'm going to eat ice cream, I'm going to eat ice cream
Yes.
every day, 5, 6 days straight, this, that, and the third. So now being in this window of I'm eating good, I don't want to eat ramen and then fall completely off the horse. I
Right.
had the reminder, like, that's not the belief system you have to continue to carry.
Right.
And she started to cry in that moment. These are the little pockets that, result in moments like in actual physical intercourse. And even as the crying started to happen, my job was to stay in it, right?
Yeah.
Make sure beyond anything physical that there's a release happening here. So I need to hold space. I need to hold the foundation for her to continue to get that out. And as I'm in it, I'm just, massaging her back, stopping, breathing her breath, making sure
Yeah.
she good to continue to allow that emotional release to happen through the sex. People laugh at Kevin Gates a lot, and I'm gonna remix something he said. He says, when he got some good something in front of him, he prays beforehand. I'm gonna go a step further. I feel like when sex is balanced between two people that are supposed to be connected and aligned, sex is prayer itself.
Absolutely.
So when you have these pockets that you're not bypassing and you're doing all this clearing of space, when we talk about addictive behaviors, I said this in a live last night, the dopamine that we are constantly strung out on. There's so many different ways why our dopamine neurotransmitters are stimulating us, from the foods we eat, how much we scroll online, the likes, the comments, binge watching shows, the smoking, the nicotine, the drinking, constant stimulation. And down regulation is when your dopamine receptors get so stimulated that they need more to be able to produce the same pleasure. So at this point, we realize that turning away from that never ending cycle is what really opens you up to what I call the top shelf levels of pleasure, of bliss, of at our base level, we still gonna have peace. It may not be bliss every day, but we are
Absolutely.
never gonna go below peace into the spaces we used to go to, because we reversed the stream from chasing these momentary blips of pleasure to now understanding that there's something more permanent that's constantly on tap if I continue to clear the space. In an article I read last night, dopamine receptors can die. They can be severely injured, but even the ones that are severely injured, they can be repaired. But the study said it took about 12 months to repair it back to its full level. I did a year of celibacy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so reading that, it just was like, yo, if you really do the work, if you really scale back and redirect your intention towards things that are going to sustain themselves, that's going to trickle not only into your bedroom with randoms, that's going to open up the portals to the type of love I never thought existed beyond a fairy tale or a movie, and vice versa.
Yeah, and I think what really has to happen, instead of allowing the pleasures that ultimately are distractions, and like I love to say, distractions don't feel like distractions until they're done distracting you.
Right.
And so a lot